Hi, my name is Mark Cummings from A&S Somerset Constabulary. I'm a roads policing specialist based here in Somerset. I'd like to talk to you today about my experience of traumatic road death. I've been a road policing officer for about 15 years now. I've attended many fatal and serious road accidents over that time. The one that I'd like to talk to you about today took place in Somerset, just north of Wincanton. It was a cold February evening, frosty on the ground and very cold in the air. It was late at night, probably getting on towards midnight, when I was called to attend a rural location. I had a report of a single vehicle having been involved in an accident and come off the road and collided with a tree. So I drove out there to attend the scene initially just as a roads policing specialist. When I arrived at the scene, I could see that there was the wreckage of a vehicle present in the road, and it quickly became clear that trapped within that vehicle was the driver. The driver was sadly deceased. He lost control, hit a tree and died at the scene of the collision. There were a number of witnesses to what happened, who I had to speak to and gather information from. I then took on the role of family liaison officer. My job there is to positively identify the deceased person, make contact with their family, break the news to them, and then gather some information for the coroner and act as a liaison between the family of the deceased and the police in our ongoing investigation into that road death. So having taken on that role, I had to ask the fire brigade who were present to assist me in removing that individual from the car so that I could search them properly. He was a young lad, just finished college in Yeovil and was working locally at a local supermarket in Wincanton. He finished work for the evening and was on his way home. I was able to search him and track down a friend of his based on some of the information in his wallet. Once I'd made contact with his friend at that address in Yeovil, it became clear that his parents lived somewhere else. So I got an approximate location for that address and I made my way out there. I arrived at their address at about 3 o'clock in the morning, knocked on the door. They were obviously asleep in bed, so they woke up, but obviously very quickly they could tell that the news wasn't going to be good. So they invited me in and we sat down in their living room and I broke the news to them that their son had died. This was an incredible shock for them. They were desperately upset. He was the middle sibling, so he had an older sister who lived away and a younger sister who lived there at the home address. To say that this family were devastated is an understatement. The impact was incredible. The lady collapsed on the floor screaming. The man couldn't stand and had to sit. And we had to work through some of those things, talk about what happened, what we knew from the incident, what we didn't know, and I had to gather some information from them to be able to pass on to the coroner's officer. That took a couple of hours. Once I finished doing that, I went home, had about 3 hours sleep, and then had to get up again to come back in to prepare for a formal identification, which took place at Yeovil Mortuary. So I had to collect that family and accompany them to the mortuary and have them spend some time with their loved one and formally identify him and take a statement to that effect. This is just one example of how road death can affect a family and one set of circumstances. No two sets of circumstances are the same when you're talking about road death. My observations on that evening were that there is very little dignity involved in road death. The lad concerned spent a reasonable amount of time lying wrapped in a tarpaulin provided by the fire brigade on the cold road surface, and I remember thinking about that at the time, and I actually took some steps to kind of straighten his clothing out and straighten his limbs out and put him in order in my own mind, just to give him back some of that dignity which he'd lost while he was lying there on the road. That's the reality of road death and the reality of family liaison for me. You're never going to pass good news on to a family when you attend an address in those circumstances, and you're possibly going to be with them at one of the worst points and lowest points of their life. So all I can say in relation to that is that the message that we try to send is to take care of each other, to make sensible decisions, to consider carefully which car you're getting into, who's driving and what their agenda is, and don't be afraid to question whether or not you should be making that journey, driving in those circumstances, or perhaps you want to stop and get out. It's okay. Everybody has to take responsibility for themselves. I'm not saying that in the case that I've described the driver didn't. What I'm saying is that these things can happen, and the situation can quickly get out of control. The very last place that I want to be is coming and seeing your family to tell them that you've been killed in an accident.